Hello to our viewers in the United States and around the world. I'm John King in Washington. Thank you for sharing a very busy news day with us. We begin the hour with stunning breaking news. President Trump, in his own words, making clear he knew about the dire threat of the coronavirus very early on, at a time he repeatedly told the American people they were safe, that China was on top of it, and that it would all soon pass. And the president, again, in his own words, making clear he deliberately withheld information from the American people, repeatedly concealed details about the gravity of this threat because, in his words, he didn't want to create a panic. These are among the many eye-popping revelations in Rage. You see the cover there, the new book by the legendary Washington Post journalist and author Bob Woodward. The book also contains new scathing takes from several of the president's closest advisors, including the former Defense Secretary James Mattis, the former Director of National Intelligence Dan Coats, presidential son-in-law Jared Kushner, and Dr. Anthony Fauci. But most stunning is to read and to hear the president acknowledging he was told early on, in early February, that the virus was a big problem in China, that airborne transmission was happening, and that it was far more serious than any flu. What he told Woodward about the coronavirus threat and what he was telling the American people in that same period of time are night and day. The gravity of what he was being told, compared to the limited actions he took in those early days, raised new and profound questions about this president's pandemic mismanagement. CNN obtained an early copy of Rage and of some of the audio recordings Woodward made in his 18 conversations with the president. Our CNN special correspondent Jamie Gangel is breaking this news right now and is here to walk us through the most significant pieces of information. Jamie, let's start with early February. This is when the president was telling the American people China is on top of this. There's little reason to worry, but...
So remember, for those of us from Watergate, Howard Baker, what did the president know and when did he know it? That's what Bob Woodward lays out in this book. And what we know is from Woodward's account that on January 28th, his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, tells him in a top secret briefing, this is going to be the greatest threat of your presidency. At the same time, the president is, as you said, playing it down. But what Woodward did with the president's permission was he recorded all of these interviews. There are 18 wide-ranging interviews. And what we're going to play you first is the president in his own words, February 7th, telling Woodward in striking detail just how much he understands about how deadly and dangerous the virus is.
And so what was President Xi saying yesterday?
Well, we were talking mostly about the virus, and I think he's going to have it in good shape, but, you know, it's a very tricky situation.
Indeed
it goes through air, Bob. That's always tougher than the touch. You know, the touch, you don't have to touch things, right? But the air, you just breathe the air, and that's how it's passed. And so that's a very tricky one. That's a very delicate one. It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus. You know, people don't realize we lose 25,000, 30,000 people a year here. Who would ever think that, right?
I know. It's
pretty amazing. And then I say, well, is that the same thing? This is more deadly. This is 5 per... You know, this is 5% versus 1% and less than 1%. You know, so this is deadly stuff.
John, I just want all of us to remember we are used to the virus now, as used as you can be. But if you go back to the beginning of February, the American public, we thought this was a problem in China. The notion of it being airborne, 5% more deadly. These are very specific details that the president had in the very same time period that he is saying it's all going to go away.
Right, that's February 7th. You just played that piece
February
of the conversation.
7th.
He talks about how deadly it is. He said 2 weeks later, 20 days later in India, it's a problem that's going to go away. Within a couple of days, it's going to be down to zero. The president telling Woodward one thing, telling the American people and the world something very different. But the interesting part is the president makes no bones about it, that he was doing this on purpose, that he decided as a strategy not to convey the seriousness of this because he didn't want to, quote, incite a panic?
Correct. So Woodward does another interview March 19th. We also have the audio of that. Again, the president in his own words. And just to set this up, remember, he has been publicly minimizing the threat to young people. Not a problem for young people. He still minimizes the threat to young people. So he addresses that, and then you'll hear he admits that he's not sharing everything he knows.
Now it's turning out it's not just old people, Bob. Just today and yesterday, some startling facts came out. It's not just older
exactly.
young people, to plenty of young people.
So
what's going on
give me a moment of talking to somebody, going through this with Fauci or somebody who kind of it caused a pivot in your mind, because it's clear just from what's on the public record that you went through a pivot on this to, oh my God, the gravity is almost inexplicable and unexplainable.
Well, I think, Bob, really, to be honest with you,
sure, I want you to.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Yes,
because I don't want to create a panic.
You know, but John, this wasn't just about panic. The White House, we know, is very concerned about the economy. The president is very concerned about getting reelected. And what I think you have to just remind people is we've put together some of what the president is saying at the same time publicly in stark contrast.
The virus. They're working hard. Looks like by April, you know, in theory, when it gets a little warmer, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true. But we're doing great in our country. China, I spoke with President Xi, and they're working very, very hard. And I think it's going to all work out fine. And again, when you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to zero, that's a pretty good job we've done. It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. Yes. And from our shores, it could get worse before it gets better. It could maybe go away. We'll see what happens. Nobody really knows. Stay calm. It will go away. You know it is going away. And it will go away. And we're going to have a great victory.
Just to sort of give you a big picture of the book, and you can see right there the contrast. Woodward paints a picture in this book of failed leadership, a betrayal of trust of the American people. We see February as a lost month where something could have been done. He knew. And you just have to wonder when you read this book, if the president had not played it down, and if he had shared with the public these details, if he had shut down the country, if he had said, wear a mask, he knew it was airborne, wash your hands, socially distance. We have lost almost 190,000 Americans. You just have to wonder how many of those lives may have been saved.
Urgency for testing back then, ramp up PPE production back then. Even if you don't shut down the economy, tell people you need to socially distant, you need to protect yourselves. We're going to get you the mask, as opposed to we'll be down to zero in a few days. It is stunning.